great trip.
Thank you.
So, are you?
Don't slack, Ruthie. Come on.
Yes.
Stay on the job till it's done.
You gotta pull it to the desk.
Don't push it.
Scriptures to us. We ask that you would lead us in the way. For you are the great way maker.
Are deceived. They're in darkness. You know, these are the days we're living in. This should give us hope. This should give us hope to know who it is to see. On the face of the earth today, whatever we see, it is unto repentance. Because this is a God who loves and wants you to love him. So, when we stand here and we think of the West, I don't want to say that the West was horrific to a rabbi. I'm sending you to the Gentiles? Give me a break. To open their eyes in order to turn them from darkness to light, from the power of Satan to God, that they might receive forgiveness of sins and an inheritance among those who are sanctified by faith. You mean the Gentiles have an inheritance? You take it for granted that God had a purpose for you before the foundation of the earth, and he had created an inheritance for you. But until the turn of all... Now, where the theater is going to have refined, you know, Oedipus Rex and all of that stuff, here we're going to show the human body and the great feats of the human body. Do you know that during Herod's time there will be the Olympic Games? It used to be every 6 years the Olympic Games. Today it's every 4 years. He will invent, when Herod has the Olympic Games here, in this stadium, something called the bronze and the silver cup. It will be given first here, in this stadium, where they're going to perform those games. So, you know, it's obviously very important. And I like the Olympics. What are the Olympics?
Joy of your salvation, and renew a right spirit within me.
Go ahead.
Why not?
Frank Urie's radio.
For the jam and the
Back and everybody.
whose bus is that?
Oh, that's my bus.
So the bus drivers probably all know each other, huh?
How do you make it whistle like it does?
Let me tell you this.
She's gonna blow the whole thing up.
Using the horn to the music. That's why he remembers you.
All right, everyone, let's keep moving.
Keep moving, everyone.
Hasn't gotten the seed pods yet, but these are the seed pods coming. Tiny little seeds come out of it.
Lord, hallelujah. Praise ye the Lord, hallelujah. Praise ye the Lord, hallelujah. Praise ye the Lord.
And to by the Jewish people, it will come out of the Babylonian dispersion when there is no temple. They are in a foreign country, and it is a way to keep the people together. You have to understand the synagogue as like the first school or the first community center. Well-mannered man walking on the hills of the Galilee. There is Antipas here, his brother Philip, and then of course we have the Decapolis cities. All of these are really kingdoms.
Valley of the Dog.
Decapolis is not quite, but still, it's this whole understanding of, and what was he preaching? He was preaching the kingdom.
The
He was
road
preaching about the kingdom
to Damascus.
So, this is the valley. That was the road that we know for sure. Think about it. In John 2, they're going to go to that wedding.
Does everybody love the boat thing? Like all the groups?
Not always.
Really? What do they do? Just sit down there?
Around the Dead Sea. That's where you want to be. Around the Dead Sea. Ba 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 around. Ba ba ba. Come on, guys. Around the Dead Sea. That's where we want to be. Around the Dead Sea. Ba 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 around. Okay. Ba 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 around. Yay! Around. Do not do it on your tummy or you will roll even more than you want to roll. Are you ready for this, guys?
Say hi, babe.
Hi, babe.
Here's our view of the Dead Sea. Volleyball and soccer down there. Hot tub. Swimming pool. They live large here.
What can you imagine? What would you store? Grain. Tick, of course.
Dates.
Dates, absolutely. We have found some of the dates that were burnt so that the Romans don't have booty. And you know, we found those date pits and we are growing. Very unusual. You know why? They don't have to do it again.
Their coffee is still hot on the table.
Exactly. Exactly. Their Starbucks is still there waiting for them. Ready for nothing, eh? You can see me getting ready for the mountains. We're going to another climate. Don't you realize that? We're on our way to another climate. And you're going to wonder what? Ready? Okay, well, I'm glad you all enjoyed Abraham's
Yes.
tent. Yeah, he's doing very well, isn't he? Abraham's in good shape, wouldn't you say?
I'm opening one of those at home.
Okay, Nathan's going to have Abraham's tent number 2. Where is that going to be, in Buffalo?
Buffalo.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Casey will help you advertise.
She'll be in charge of the camel ride.
Yeah, we're happy, aren't we?
So funny. I say, Casey.
Let me just tell you that.
Because I want to.
יופי, עכשיו אנחנו בדרך ללכת. That exploded a terrorist bomb today in Jerusalem at the central bus station. Actually, right next to the central bus station. Interesting enough, Eliyahu, my husband, and his friend Chuck were on a terrace overlooking that when it happened, because they were looking at a hotel for the January conference, and they were just there and saw it from the 9th floor. So right now they're saying 34 people are injured, and as far as I can understand, it was in a phone booth. I don't know if that's possible, but anyway, it was next to a bus stop, so it was the people who were exploded. So if someone would like to pray for the safety
for them, and that you'd anoint. We ask it in Yeshua's name. This January, we've had, I represent a ministry called Intercessors for Israel. It's obviously an intercessory prayer ministry based in Jerusalem and worldwide. And every year for the past 26 years, we've been having a solid week of prayer in Jerusalem, and people come from all over the world. And this year we were actually in this hotel for a week while Egypt was melting down. And I think I will get into that. So we're already starting to look for hotels for next year's conference, and this is a possibility. But there was also a possibility right in downtown Jerusalem, near the entrance to the city.
It was singing.
Huh?
It was singing.
It was singing?
Yes, very much.
Okay. And we were meeting the staff there and looking at the facilities and the rooms. And we were checking out what the bedrooms look like. We were up on the 19th floor. A friend and colleague of mine, Chuck Cohen, was out on the balcony because he loves to take photographs. And it's right at the entrance to the city where you'll see it on one of these days, this beautiful bridge. That's beautiful, but I think belongs in another city. Anyway, it was about 3 o'clock, and all of a sudden we got boom. And Chuck saw the smoke of a bomb that went off by a bus station. At last report, 39 people were injured, some serious. It's questionable whether anyone died. But this is part of the reality that we face. And perhaps you're looking for something else. I'll give you time to ask questions if you're not too exhausted, and I'm not. But Hanna said, bring an update, so how can I not tell you about that? You know, there were 2 Grad missiles landed in Beersheba today. In the last 3 days, over 50 rockets hit the cities in the areas of the south of Israel, nowhere where you were going. But actually, the Prime Minister is meeting with his security cabinet today. Okay, that would be better. And we could actually be on the edge, the brink of another war in the south with Hamas. 50 rockets in one day. It shows that Israel's deterrent posture, its deterrent status, has been weakened, and the Palestinians feel that they can do whatever they want to. And, you know, people around the world do not give us the right to respond. Excuse me, I'll shut this off. To respond to this.
They must really want you, because that's who was
No,
saying.
Sheep
I
are
have
like
a-
goats, I got
I have an eye
calves, I
appointment
got
tomorrow, and they're
pigs, I
calling
got-
me to tell me about it.
you.
I'll just shut off the phone, sorry.
No problemo.
Okay. You know, the people around the world say, well, no one's died.
That's what I'm gonna say.
You know, you're Americans, I'm still an American as well as an Israeli, and I was raised in America. And there was an old saying that I grew up with. It's the thought that counts. You know that one?
Yeah.
And the reality is the thought of the Palestinians, especially in Hamas, is to destroy us. I'll give you their, the phrase, the standard that they live by in a few minutes. So I'm trying to give you a picture of what's going on in Israel today. You know, the world is consumed right now with what's happening in Libya. And so actually, geostrategically, it might be a very good time for Israel to respond to these rocket attacks. While the world has got their focus somewhere else. No one looks for war. But there are situations where it is the only reasonable response. And when you have an enemy sitting on your southern border that continues, even at the great cost of suffering of their own people, to send 50 mortars in one day into Israel and then 2 Grad rockets into Beersheba, which is a major metropolis in Israel. I don't know what number of the largest of the cities is, but it is the fourth largest and absolutely the largest city in the desert. Site of a university and a medical school. And no nation on the face of the earth, except Israel, would not immediately respond.
Amen.
But the world says you can respond, but we cannot. You know, the world is always wanting us to turn the other cheek, as if Israel lived by the New Testament. We're not a born-again New Testament nation, and America is not a born-again New Testament nation. And before Barack Obama came around, America did not turn the other cheek. And I'll mention him in a little while, because whether you like it or not, your nation is in a position not only of power, with that power comes responsibility.
Amen.
And how America is taking their responsibility, you can judge as well as I can. What's happening in Libya is another, well, I don't know if I can say another. I think what happened in Iraq was justified on many levels. The response, however, you know, President Bush had this, what can I say, Western way of thinking, that the Arab world wants democracy. I'm sorry, that's not the way they have been wired for the last 1,000+ years. Look at Russia, which is mostly a Western nation. They're not wired for democracy either. They want a strong ruler who will make sure that they're not starving and that they have a roof over their heads. That's the important thing, and it's important for people all around the world. You know, the Western nations, and Israel has to be included in that, we are wired for democracy. We want liberty, we want our say. And just remember, please, democracy is not God's political standard. His standard is theocracy.
Right.
But since only a few of us around the world know that he's still sitting on the throne and that the government is still upon his shoulders, democracy has become a very far second best, but better than all the other political ways of living, I guess. But what's happening in Libya? I mean, Muammar Gaddafi, without a doubt, is a madman. I mean, there's no question. But he's actually done some good for Libya. You know, Libya is one of the most literate of the Arab Muslim nations, and it's thanks to Gaddafi. He's built roads, he's built hospitals, he's built schools. He's still a madman, and a vicious madman at that. But you know, he wasn't as bad as what might come after him. You know, they talk about the rebels. The rebels are a disparate group that has no unity, no one really leading them. And you need to understand that the Arab world has two allegiances. One is to Islam, a religious allegiance, and the other is to their tribe. And that tribal allegiance is very strong and can overcome any kind of secular government that there is. So we don't really know, let's say the rebels win, which is not for sure yet anyway. What's going to come out of it? Who is going, the people who are probably most capable of taking control would be Islamic fundamentalists. Basically, a Libyan Islamic Muslim Brotherhood or Al-Qaeda itself, which has tentacles in all Muslim countries and throughout Africa. But the danger from the Israeli perspective is that this intervention in a sovereign nation, Libya, could be used as a justification for intervening here in Israel if we are battling the Palestinians. So it's actually a very dangerous time for Israel geostrategically. At the same time that it might be a good opportunity to try and remove Hamas, which is a great difficulty because a lot of people will die in that. You know, people don't want to look at the reality that to remove them, many people will die, and for them to stay, many people, more than many people will die. So it's a choice. I'm glad that I'm not sitting in the Prime Minister's office. I can be very glib, and I can tell you what the Prime Minister can do, but the weight of those decisions does not rest upon my shoulders. And I pray for the Prime Minister. I pray for him to hear from God. If God can speak through a donkey, he can speak through a Prime Minister.
Amen.
And I personally believe that he's been brought into power for such a time as this. And he may not be the perfect man, he certainly is not. But when I look at the possibilities of those who could replace him, it still appears that he is the best man on the block. You know, Sarah Palin had a visit with him on Monday night. And I don't know what your opinion of Sarah Palin is. I personally like her, although she doesn't seem electable. But I prayed for her as a sister that she, and a political leader, that she would be able to speak words into Benjamin Netanyahu's life that would be from God through her to him.
Amen.
And I don't know what's happened, and I may never know, but I do hope that she was able to use that opportunity to encourage him and to strengthen him. He is one of the most attacked human beings on the face of the earth. Most of the Western world, with the exception of the United States, doesn't like him. The President of the United States doesn't like him. And many Israelis badmouth him left and right. Again, they don't have that responsibility sitting on their shoulders. And, you know, I think we need to hold a biblical line. But we need to be realistic when we talk about politics. We need to realize that most presidents have not been believers. I think George Bush is a believer, but he made a very unbiblical, terrible mistake of saying, I look for the day when there is a Palestinian state. That is totally 1,000% unbiblical. And I think he's paid for it in his standing before the people of the United States and his ability to exercise authority. But at the same time, we need to be generous enough to say, I'm not sitting there and I'm praying. But this man is making life and death decisions that sometimes we as believers are we're just not fair. You know, we want to hold an absolute biblical line, and I believe in that, and I hold it as much as I can in my own life, and that's the way I pray. But I have to realize that if I make a prayer decision, it may cost the lives of people, it may not, it may save people. I think prayer works. I think it's not just something that edifies ourselves. You know, if you look at the picture of Moses, I'm getting totally distracted of what I was going to speak, and so
You're in the flow.
I'm in the flow. Let's see where it is. Exodus 32, I think.
Who were you talking about just then? Obama or Bush?
You just talked about Bush, saying that I think he is a brother. I don't think that Barack Obama is born again. You know, if Barack Obama, well, if I may get to him, okay. People of Israel, Moses is up on the mountain with the Lord. People of Israel have no faith, and they built a golden calf.
They can't wait.
And the Lord said to Moses, this is Exodus 32, verse 7, and the Lord said to Moses, go, get down, for your people, whom you have brought into the land of Israel, have corrupted themselves. They have turned quickly aside of the way which I commanded them. They have made themselves a molten calf and worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, this is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Israel, out of the land of Egypt. And the Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, and indeed, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, that I may consume them, and I will make of you a great nation. And Moses, this is verse 11, that Moses pleaded with the Lord his God and said, Lord, why does your wrath turn hot against your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians speak and say, he brought them out to harm them, to kill them in the mountains, to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath and relent from this harm to your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self and said to them, I will multiply your descendants as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have spoken of I give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever. So the Lord relented from the harm which he said he would do to his people. I mean, what a wrestling match. God says to Moses, this is your people. You brought them out. And Moses says, no, Lord, it's your people. You brought them out. And, you know, this is a picture of the intercessor who stands in the gap for the people who cannot pray for themselves. Sometimes they don't even know they're sinning. And that's how we have to stand before the Lord for Israel. But this is a picture of a man who knew the heart of God, and he knew the character of God. And he was not being